Good evening, everyone. Such a pleasure and a delight to share with us and to have us all here again. Our commitment. Please, if your mic is Jane, I think your mic is unmuted. Please mute it. Any other person, please, if your mic is unmuted, do well to. Hi, Princess. Good evening. All right. Good evening, everyone. A pleasure to be here. So, quickly, we're looking at conflict or disagreement. Conflict or disagreement. Now, the first things I'm going to say, if you read Joshua chapter 1, verse 8, if you follow me, you would. There's something I always like to say. I always like to say that the word of God is for doing. Now, the word of God transforms you, but ultimately, you are meant to do the word. Okay, you don't just, it's like going to school. You go to learn to be an engineer. The teachings transforms you from a secondary school student who just came out of school into being an engineer. The teachings transform you from being a secondary school student who just passed out of sciences and became a medical doctor. But ultimately, the reason why you're becoming a medical doctor is because you are meant to practice. All right. So if we see someone who graduated from school was transformed, all right, in that sense, by the teachers, by the lecturers, but does not practice, then there's a problem. All right. So you see that from Joshua chapter 1, verse 8. It says, "This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do." To do. All right. We quote the scripture a whole lot without understanding that the end product after meditation is doing. Okay, the end product after meditation, after the word of God has transformed you, the next thing that should come is doing. Now, also, for the period of this class, you want to do well to ensure that you are the first recipient of what you're hearing. And I'll explain what that means. Please, Christina, your video is turned on. I don't know if you're aware. All right, your video is turned on. Right, so you are the first recipient of anything you're hearing. All right, because one of the fastest way to waste your time in any class, in any session, is to listen and hope and think that you don't need what is being taught. Years ago, when I was still in CPM, that's my home church. Even though I don't attend there physically, my heart is still very much. I'm still a member of the house, basically. All right. But I mean, when I was still actively there was a day Reverend Obi was teaching, and whilst he was teaching, somebody shouted, "Tell them!" and he responded almost instantly and said, "No, tell us." When I heard it, I mean, I was still pretty young then. I was much younger. I'm still a young guy. I was much younger then. So I didn't quite understand, like, why did he have to give the person back to back? But now I'm realizing that anytime you sit under a class, anytime you sit under a school, you sit in a school, anytime you sit under a teaching, and your mind begins to tell you that the things you're hearing are not primarily for you, that they are primarily for others, you realize that you will not be able to grasp, and fully apply the things you're hearing. So you are here for yourself. You must tell yourself that. If this was a physical class, I would have said, tell your neighbor, I'm here for myself. All right. But you can say that to yourself. You're here for yourself. The class is for you. All right. If there's any other person is going to impact, one of the easiest way to impact someone else is by becoming the very thing you want them to do. Like I always say this. All right. If you say your love language is what was it called? Maybe act of service, and whatever it is, or so yours is act of service or words of affirmation. You must speak your language. The reason why you say, "Oh, Igbo is my language," is because you speak it. But unfortunately, love languages these days are tools of manipulation. So someone says, "Oh, I love it when people give me gifts." Then, if for instance, you're a pastor, or you hold an influential position where people listen to you every time when you talk. Every time the guy or the lady comes out on stage to talk, is saying it over and over again. "Oh, I love gifts. I am a gift person." Now, if we keep on hearing you say, "I love gifts," but we don't see you give gifts, then it means that thing you are claiming is your language is not your language. Because for it to be your love language, you must speak the language. Have you ever seen somebody who says, "This is my language," but doesn't speak it? How do you feel about that? Say, outside is my language. Okay, let's talk outside. Say, I can't speak it. You realize that that is not a normal thing, but it has become such a manipulative tool where we now normalize somebody having a language they don't speak. So if your love language is that you love, people surprising you, you too must be able to surprise others. All right. And I've seen that people who healthily have certain love languages. All right. There are people who, if I talk with them, if I interact with them for such a long time, I already know what their love language is. All right. In fact, I can conveniently begin to mention some names here of persons who I know what their love language is, not because they told me, but simply because they speak it. It is not your love language if you don't speak it. All right. You can't say, my love language is receiving gifts. You are being selfish. You are being manipulative. If you love receiving gifts, you must love to give. Okay, because the whole essence of receiving is also to give. So you can't say my love language is act of service. You just cross your leg and sit down. You don't serve people. You don't serve anybody. Nobody in the world has ever heard heard in the history of the world where you served anyone. What you do is that you tell people this is your love language, and why you're saying it is so that you can manipulatively tell them to serve you. It is not your love language, it is your love manipulation. If there's anything like that. All right. So if it is your language, you must speak it. Nobody has a language that they don't speak. If it is your love language, you must speak it. Very important. Now, I said we're looking at conflict or disagreement in marriage. Conflict or disagreement in marriage. Now, if you're writing down, I'm going to need you to be as fast as possible so that we'll be able to maximize our time. All right. Now, what is conflict? Now, please take note of what I'm going to share. What is conflict? Conflict is a mental struggle, mental, not physical, mental struggle resulting from incompatible or opposing needs, drives, wishes, or external or internal demands. Let me take that again. What is conflict? Conflict is a mental struggle resulting from incompatible or opposing needs, drives, wishes, or external or internal demands. Now, what does this mean? Number one is that at the crux of the definition of what conflict is mental, not physical. So if you guys move from saying I don't agree with this is how, and this one say I don't, then one person now slaps the other person, it is no longer conflict. It's now abuse. Okay, because it will shock you the idea people have about love. True life story. I heard of a young lady who the husband used to beat her mercilessly. All right, terribly. I don't know if that mercilessly. Okay, mercilessly. The husband used to beat her like crazily, like black and blue and all of that. And one of the days she went to meet a counselor or her pastor, somebody in that capacity though. And whilst they were talking, the man. So she communicated to, and she didn't say anything wrong with it. She communicated to the pastor or the counselor and said, please, someone should send Pastor Joe the link. Right, she's asking for it now. So she communicated and she was like, that the man beat her, and she was talking about it like it was a normal stuff, like pretty like nothing, no big deal. And the pastor stopped, like, are you serious? Your husband beats you, and what are you still doing in the marriage? And she was like, that what is it? That if he doesn't beat her, how will she know that he loves her? Like real life story. Like, say, if he doesn't beat me, how do I know that he loves me? So for her, she has been able to successfully equate love to beating. So for her, love equals beating. And you can be rest assured that that mindset she didn't that mindset didn't come by mistake. Maybe her father or an uncle or somebody in an authority capacity in her life who was very close to her had communicated to her the same way, people abuse young ladies or young guys and make them believe that that's how to communicate love to them. So, and you should understand that the greatest, trust me, the greatest influence, um uh greatest influence that your child is going to have will come from the parent. And let me tell you, 95% of what they learn comes from what they observe you do above what you say. It comes from, so if the child, the male child, for instance, now observes that, oh, mom, daddy used to beat mommy anyhow, he now sees that beating lifestyle as a norm. All right, to move on to. So why did I come here? I was saying that conflict is mental struggle, not physical abuse. When hand begins to exchange, blow begins to exchange, or property begins to be damaged, it is no longer conflict, it is now fight. So what we're referring to is not that kind of conflict. So we're saying that conflict is a mental struggle. What is causing the mental struggle? It is resulting from incompatible or opposing needs. You guys, this person believes that this is love, and that person believes that this is love. All right, take for instance the simple thing, what to prepare on Christmas Day can be the problem in most homes. All right, one person believes Christmas is a norm, we must eat rice, stew, and chicken. I don't know the contract we signed with chicken for Christmas. All right, so most persons have that idea. You might have somebody who believes that Christmas it is goat meat pepper soup. That is the style. That can be a source of conflict. Now, if you, as you begin to mature, in age, in marriage, you know how to pick your fight. You realize, even mature in life, you realize that you're not supposed to engage or fight. It is not everybody who threatens you on the street you're going to fight with. If a madman shouts at you, hey, I'm going to beat you up, you don't respond to the madman. You select your fight, but we'll get there. All right. So conflict is mental struggle that is resulting from incompatible or opposing needs, drives, wishes, external or internal demands. Some persons have demands, okay, and we're going to come there when we look at the possible things that causes conflict in most marriages. Now, why do we have conflict? Now we have said it comes from opposing, demands, needs, and all of that. Why do we have this conflict? Conflict come because your partner has a different family from you, grew up with different friends from you, most likely attended a different church from you, and different school. Generally, the very thing you love in your partner, oh, I like she's different from me. I like how maybe you are a very, very quiet person. Now you're falling in love with somebody who is not so quiet. All right, you just like how she's very bubbly or how he's very bubbly, but you are a very reserved person, you're a very reserved lady, and the man is, if an extrovert. That very thing you love in that person is most likely what is going to cause quarrel when you get married. Because usually, write this down, what causes conflict in marriages are the things that the other person is doing that is different from what we do. So sometimes oftentimes, let me say this, oftentimes in ideal settings, what causes conflict is not good or bad, it is different. I'll explain what that means. What causes conflict oftentimes is not maybe what the person is doing is good or what the person is doing is bad. Sometimes it is different. I mean, we've heard of stories of people who had major fallout in their marriages. Why? Because of toothpaste. Say the man say you must press it. My dad was like that, but even though he didn't quarrel anybody about it, I mean, he trained us with it. When you want to press the toothpaste, we press it from down up. You don't dare. I mean, I don't have any record of him ever scolding my mom for it. All right, but with us, the children, he was very big on it. You don't dare get into the toilet, and you want to brush your teeth. You now squeeze the toothpaste from up or from the middle. You don't dare, because you are going to get some dealing with if you try that. So something as little as that, because by the end of the day, the toothpaste is still in the tube. Whether you push it from up or push it from down, really doesn't affect the quality of your teeth. Think about it. If you push it from up, it's not going to be more effective. If you push it from down, it's not going to be more effective. So usually, what causes conflict? So there are, please, Ewa, your mic is unmuted, right? So usually, you would realize that the things that causes conflict in most marriages are really not bad, good or bad things. Are just things that are different. This person sees life differently from this other person. This person attended church A, the other person attended church B, and this other person's pastor has been telling him over the years that men like to be served kneeling down. Now he has grown up, he now loves the idea of being served kneeling down, and now he's married to a woman who was pastored by someone else. All right, and the person had told him, told her that, Omo, you don't kneel down to serve a man. The man is not God. Respect the man, but don't kneel down. Okay, maybe stand. And now she feels that's the right thing to do. So you have come now because you're married to her. You now want her to have a change of mind in one day because you are Lord of her life. Oftentimes, it doesn't work that way, because what mindset that people take years to build will take time for them to unlearn. Write it down. Mindset that people, Rachel, your video is on. Mindset that take people years to build, oftentimes will take them years to unlearn. So one of the greatest gifts you give yourself in any union is to be patient. I always say this. In every union, there are some things that will change when you talk. There are some things that will take a while to change. There are some things that will take years to change. There are some things that will change immediately after you talk. And guess what? There are some things that would never change. Some things would never change. And you can't suspend your happiness until those things change. So I don't like the way he eats. What if he never stops eating that way? Are you going to be happy? Are you going to suspend your happiness until the person is able to eat? So that, all right. So conflict, oftentimes, the source of conflict is different. It's not really like the person is doing something bad. The person is just doing something different from how you see life. You believe that once you come back from the house, remove your clothes, go to the bedroom, bathe. Now, as much as you want to argue is hygiene, is the person's personal hygiene. So if the person believes that I don't need to bathe immediately, after I get back from work, I want to first stay, sit down, play with the family. Then when I want to go and sleep, anointing, your video is turned on. Thank you. All right. When I want to go and sleep, I'll now go and bathe. But you are battering, the lady, saying, what's wrong with you? You're now, the mistake you now start making is start calling her dirty because she does not bathe at the time you expect her to bathe. So usually, like I said, what causes conflict oftentimes in marriage is not really good or bad, because good or bad is clear. It is usually different. This person does things differently from me. And you must understand that you must always have that situation because you were born into different families. In fact, guess what? Your siblings that you grew up with in the same house, you don't all think alike. You put things differently. At least I have siblings that were born from the same mother, the same father. We don't all think the same way. All right. Even the ones who would think that that our mindsets are similar, it is not exactly the same. If you see interview us, speak with us, you'll find some measure of difference. So if my siblings with whom I was born still think different, even though maybe we have a lot of things that we agree on. Maybe in our house we don't eat yam because our dad told us that yam is not good, and we all believed it. In our yam, we don't eat roasted meat. Those ones. But there are certain personal things, by the time you begin to interact, you realize that you put things differently from yourselves. So if sometimes you don't agree with yourself, all right, there are days you want to go to work and your body is telling you, you can't go to work today, but you still go to work. That's you disagreeing with yourself. If you can give yourself grace, then you should give your partner grace. Now we're headed somewhere. We've not hit what we're looking for. Now, I want to explain. I'll just mention it. All right. Stages of relationship as it has to do with conflict. All right. Stages of relationship as it has to do with conflict. Now, please, if you're writing down, please, I implore you to please do that. All right. We have an assessment class immediately. Once we are done with the class, the assessment is going to be posted on the group. All right. And you have between now and what's it called? Between now and Friday next week to ensure you finish the assessment. Now, trust me, the assessment is very objective. So if I were you, I would advise you to just do it immediately. We finish the class. All right, you see your result immediately, and I mean, just finish. Every course has assessment. Every course has, so pay attention. Make sure you're writing, and beyond just the assessment, make sure you're listening to internalize. All right. So I said here that we have different stages of relationship vis-a-vis conflict. All right. So now for every relationship, there's a winning. I sidestep some stages. All right. So to bring out the one that concerns us. All right. Now for every relationship, there's what I call the winning stage, the winning or the win stage. All right. Now, in the winning stage is where maybe not maybe I do not believe, ladies, if you like a man and the man is not catching the vibe, you are permitted to give green light, but not to speak to the person. And even in giving green light, don't be too desperate, because when you become too desperate, you appear cheap. And sometimes, listen, the truth is sometimes there are some ladies scare some men away. When the man is not ready to commit and you now start giving the person winning, yes, WINNING, yes, Perke, thank you. WINNING. All right. Now, sometimes by the time you begin to give the guy is not ready. You like the guy, but the guy has not said anything. The guy is not even ready to make commitment, even though the guy is feeling you, is feeling you. There's a way you come with full dose, you scare the guy. Interesting. The guy likes you, but that commitment you're seeking for right now can scare him away. So you've got to be patient. All right. Now, that's not where so we're talking about stages of relationship vis-a-vis conflict. Number one is the winning stage. The winning stage is that phase, after you have gone past all the asking out and everything, and you have won the person over. The person has now agreed to do life with you. Immediately after agreeing to do life, and listen, this can also be factored into marriage. You guys are hustling, I want to get married after dating for several years. Now you just got in. All right. Now, by the stage where you are doing the wedding and everything, before you now eventually all go to the house to start living together, is also for those who are in marriage, the winning stage. Now, there's a excitement phase of relationship. Excitement phase is the few weeks immediately, after the person says yes. You guys will never have conflict. Never. If in fact, if I don't know if there's anybody here who has had conflict 1 week into, you just got into a relationship, the first week you have had quarrel, raise your hand. First week you accepted relationship with somebody, and first week you had a major quarrel, raise your hand. The first week you had a major quarrel. Nobody. All right. You see, in a class of this amount of persons, not one person. Now you realize that two things are happening. Number one is that initial stage of the relationship, everybody is putting out their best foot. Okay. But the problem with that is that you can't keep up with that, because, like I said the other time, and we'll still talk about it in more details, intimacy, true intimacy, is being able to stay with your partner and behave and be as comfortable as it was only you that was there. So let me give you an example. If you are alone and you want to fart, you want to mess, like we say in Nigeria, all right? If you're alone and you want to mess, you know how you used to raise your leg and drop it like it's hot with sound. And you will not do, how you do in public, where you now make the gas come out small. That's because you are with people. When you are alone, you have freedom. Now, when you know that you guys are beginning to hit intimacy is when you can drop that fat beside that person as though it is only you that was there. All right. But you don't get this at the excitement phase. At the excitement phase, if fat hungry you suck it in. Your stomach will be gassed. All right, because you are still trying to bring out your best foot forward. Most likely said, when you want to talk on the phone in the morning and it's a video call, you most likely go and wash your face. It's the first week of relationship. All right. Yeah, people who get married, first week the lady is wearing new pant and bra. The guy has bought new boxers. For these first 7 days, that's all he's wearing. New boxers, new singlets. After 2 weeks, you now start seeing the white that is now brown, the boxers that it feels like almost this one has hole under. That's the real person showing up. So you realize that excitement phase is not something you guys can maintain for long. You can't maintain it. At some point, you're going to get tired. Because listen, you can't be acting for the rest of your life. It's like acting. Every day, say set, take two. You can't do that forever. That's why even actors don't act always. After a while, they want to stop. So if you ask people who are married here, you realize this happened. The first few weeks, or first few days of marriage, new boxers, new pants, new bra. Because you are still in your excitement phase, and in your excitement phase, everybody is putting out their best foot. Now, number two is that at the excitement phase, guess what is happening? At the excitement phase, you see what you're not happy about, all right, in your partner, but you don't talk about it. You know why? Because you are more concerned about not ruining the moment than having a sustainable relationship at that point. So you don't want to ruin the moment. You don't want to no. I don't want her to squeeze her face. Excitement phase, but it won't last for long. Now, the third phase is the stage where I call the walk stage. Now, usually I have found out that the walk stage is the stage where most people say give up on relationships. Now, let me say this quickly. All right. If you're going to be married and remain married for the rest of your life, you must cancel every option, every alternative. Listen, it's a terrible place to be married, and every time you have conflict, you have packed your bags. Where are you going to? Say, I'm leaving. Where exactly are you going to? You're not going anywhere. You're married. You are the one that said till death do us part. Quarrel will not do you part. All right. Especially maybe if you live in Abuja and your family has a house in Abuja, or you live in Lagos and your family has a house in Lagos, you just feel like if he just offends me like this, if he doesn't, you see, in my father's house, in my father's house, we used to have AC to sleep every night. Now I've married you. Now there's heat in this house. Listen, that house that you're referring to is your father's house. It's no longer your house. All right. So whatever you see in there now, there's a healthy balance, and we're going to come there. Whatever you see that is healthy, you stay there. So take off the alternative. If it doesn't work here, I'm going to go to my father's house. If you're going to like where exactly are you going to? All right. So usually the walk stage is the stage where people are now being real. The old boxers are now coming out. All right. The bras that the lady hid, not like she hid it, she bought new ones and just kept it, bomb shot. Listen to me, let me say this to you. All right. Nobody's going to be wearing bomb shot every night. That stuff only exists in movies. So I want a woman who's going to be wearing bomb shot every night, wear cologne on her body every night, Then you too, as a lady, you say, I want a man who will cuddle me to sleep every night. That man does not exist. Please. There's no man in this world that will cuddle you every night before you sleep. No man. And when you see in movies, all right, when they cuddle the lady, all right, they cuddle her till she wakes up the next morning. Baba, it's not real, though. That stuff ain't real. All right. In real life, we go to toilet in the middle of the night. In real life, some people wake up to read in the night. Some people wake up to walk in the night. In real life, some people wake up to go and poo, to go and pray. If the one that does not wake up will roll while sleeping. So that idea of as he hold me, that's how he sleeps. Let me paint a picture. All right. Usually, for instance, The fantasy that most men have about marriage sometimes is what they get from pornographic movies, and I'll explain what that means. All right. So now in porn, um, please, someone should tell Pastor Pius to stop what he's doing. He's disturbing me here. Please, someone should call him or something. Great. Now, in porn, you realize that the man just went to work. All right, the man just went to work, and he the guy just went to work, and maybe the wife is at home. Okay, and the no emotional investment, no discussion with the woman, no anything. He just comes back and touches the wife, and wow, they have sex. They have sex, so sweet sex. Usually, it doesn't work that way. A woman's emotional turn on is attached to her emotions. So a woman's sexual turn on is attached to her emotions. So when you don't have investment in there continuously, it affects how she responds to you sexually. Also, for the woman, her idea, that's why you realize that most women watch soap operas, soaps, Korean movies. Usually, listen, if you are here and you are married or you're about to get married and your wife loves to watch soap, what she's watching is how she wants you to be. Just that the problem with that is it's not possible. Because in most soaps, the guy, they go walk. The guy is always discussing with the woman 24/7, always talking with her. He's always there for her. He sleeps in the bed, gives her breakfast in bed, and all of those. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't show care and attention, but I'm saying that level of consistency you see in Korean movies is not the real life. So the man who feels like once I touch the woman, she will respond with sex. The woman expects that the man would always be, smiling like Yim Jong-hoo, like Yim Jong-hoo, always smiling, always before she falls. Yeah, he has dropped his hand and picked her up. See, you have fantasy brewing on both sides. All right. So the work stage is where the height of disagreement now sets in. Now, usually people walk away at this phase. Once you will redo that same cycle with someone else, unfortunately, because disagreements are necessary if we're going to agree. Disagreements are normal. What this teaching is meant to communicate to us is to have us not run away from disagreements. Like I said the other time, what disagreement is showing you is that there is an area of you guys are trying to build a life together. Now, in building a life together, Amos chapter 3, verse 3 says, shall two walk together except they be agreed. What is showing you is that the both of you don't yet agree. And if you are going to work together, that disagreement is not a problem. It is not a problem. It must be treated the right way. You must see it with the right perspective. Now, let me quickly rush over this. The work stage is usually where everybody now comes out with their real self, their old singlets, old clothes. Now the lady is no longer wearing bomb shorts in the night. She's not tying wrapper once in a while. It's not every night she's wearing lingerie. Now sometimes she wears jeans to sleep. You're going to get that. You are going to get that. On some days it will happen. All right. The lady who you thought was Angel Gabriela, so spotless, her skin is so spotless, her English is so nice. Now you are realizing that she can fart. That's her real self. It is in that stage, the work stage, and until the two of you bring out your real self, you are not in a relationship. Let me say this. The honeymoon, you are supposed to enjoy honeymoon for the rest of your life. All right. But I'm telling you that inside honeymoon, there's disagreement. Yes, there is. And by the grace of God, by the special grace of God, I have a healthy marriage. So I can confidently, so that thank God it's not coming from somebody who has a terrible marriage where then the person will tell you almost is quarrel every day. No. I have, by the grace of God, I have a healthy marriage. But I'm telling you that inside honeymoon, there's disagreement. And being able to manage both and not ruin the honeymoon is a skill that you must learn. The fact that you guys are disagreeing does not mean you should not lick the honey in the moon. You still do the two at the same time. All right. So it is only at the work stage when you are now seeing the real partner, the real boxer, the real this, the real that. That's when the relationship has truly started. At the excitement phase, relationship never starts. Now, the last phase is what I call the establishment phase. The establishment phase is the phase where you guys see two things have happened. You have disagreed. On some issues, you have agreed. And on some issues, you have compromised. On some issues, you both have agreed. On some issues, the two of you have said, I don't agree. This one said, I don't agree. So, okay, you do like this, let me do like this, and that's a compromise. And you must understand that in every marriage, some issues you hit an agreement over, some you hit a compromise over. But I pray for you that the ones you hit an agreement on will be more than the one you do compromise. Because when the compromise is more than the one you agree on, then there's problem in the relationship. All right? There's problem in the relationship. Now, let me say this. Let me quickly show us this. There are different types of persons. Please, I want you to take note of this carefully. There are different types of persons in a conflict. In every conflict, now, for you to be able to resolve conflict, you must understand who you are with, whether as a spouse or as a to-be spouse. I'm going to list three categories of persons in every conflict, then I'll explain it. Number one, you have avoiders. In every conflict, number one, there are three different classes of persons. And once I give this explanation, you will see what I'm saying. Now, in the test, there is a test, in the assessment after this course, there's a part where you have to fill in which one you are. Which are you? All right. Now, there are avoiders. Avoiders is spelled AVOIDERS. Avoiders. Number two is they are people who I call fighters. You know what fighters? You know how to spell fighters. FIGHTERS. Number one is avoiders. In a conflict, in every conflict, you find these three categories of persons. Number one, avoiders. Number two, fighters. Number three, calm talkers. Calm. CALM. Talkers. CALM. Talkers. Now, who are avoiders? Avoiders are people who would rather sweep an issue under the carpet than have a conversation about it. So what you see usually in an avoid, by the time the conversation wants to get heated, whatever you say, the person will say, okay, I agree. That thing the person is saying, the person really does not agree. Just that the person feels like it is too stressful to have a disagreement. So they would rather just say, and that's why 2 months later, by the time you come back to address that issue, the avoider does not remember what he told you or what she told you. You know why? The person was not really about what you guys agreed on. The person was more about avoiding having conflict. So there are people who run away from conflict. Anything that looks like conflict, disagreement, they run away from it. Those are avoiders. Now, you must understand, if you are an avoider, you must understand that sweeping issues under the carpet don't fix anything. Sweeping issues under the carpet does not fix anything. And let me tell you, especially when you get married, if you sweep too many things under the carpet, you realize that you can't live in the home. You can't deal. All right? Now, every healthy family have discussions. What an avoider tries to do is to avoid having tough discussions. Hard discussions. If it's going to be a discussion where you have to tell the other person what they are not getting right, the avoider will leave it. Is a problem. Every time the guy will ask you, what can I do better? You say, nothing. I don't find anything. Usually, if you check the avoider, it's not like the avoider does not have something to say. The person is just more concerned about not wanting to hurt your feelings than telling you what he feels or she feels you should do right. Like I said, every healthy family have discussions. Unhealthy families don't have discussions. So if you're an avoider, understand that stance you are taking does not provide long-term solution. It doesn't, because in the long term, it's going to affect the relationship in adversely than help it. All right. Number two are fighters. Fighters are people where once the issue comes up like this, now they want to scatter. They want to have the discussion. And when they have discussions, they shout. All right. Now, sometimes fighters have the tendency to go crazy over an issue. All right. They go crazy sometimes, use foul languages, they turn up the heat on every discussion. But once they are done letting you know how they feel, they become fine. Now, the problem sometimes with fighters is that once a fighter turns up the heat, all he or she is concerned about is letting you know how they feel, not how you, they don't want to hear how you feel. So once they feel like they have told you what is in their mind, the quarrel has ended. Because to them, the conflict is more about them telling you what is in their mind than hearing what is in your mind. And this kind of attitude or approach to conflict is also adverse to any relationship. Because, listen, every time there's a conflict, please write this down. Every time there's a conflict, seldom do you have just one person responsible for the conflict. Now, usually, you might find in a conflict, somebody contributes 80% and another person contributes 20%. All right? But in every case, that's why if you want to start arguing with someone, if you say, okay, so you are a very foolish person, you were the one that scattered this place, the person will now remind you, okay, because I'm not talking, Abi, we're not the one that did this one also. In the year so and so, you did this, I kept quiet. What the person is trying to show you is that they are not the only one who is guilty. So if you are a fighter, you must learn to listen. And it's not even good to fight. All right. Now, the third one, which is the most healthy of the three, is calm talkers. Calm talkers are people who would rather, once there's an issue, they want to sit down, have discussion. Let me hear your side. This is how you made me feel. This is how the discussion. They calmly talk. Proverbs 15, verse 1 to 2. It says, a soft answer turns away wrath. So usually a calm talker falls under this. They don't want conflict. They don't want shout. Okay, and they don't want to avoid the talk. Say there's an offense, say, let's forget about it. The calm talker will say, no, we have to talk about it. All right. Now, the goal, if you want to have a healthy marriage, whatever class you are, whether you are in the class of the avoiders or the fighters, where you should be targeting is calm talking. Now, usually it is much more easy for the avoider to switch from the position of avoiding conversations to becoming a calm talker. And it is much more difficult for a fighter to move, because usually fighters are selfish. Once they have told you what is in their mind, they don't want to listen again. If anything you are saying at that point, their ear is not carrying it. Because for a fighter, a conflict is more about them than about you. So those are positions you need to start on learning. Every time there's a conflict, two persons are always responsible. Except you are God, like literal God, not God by extension. Except you are the God Almighty, the one that sits in the heavens. Except you are that person. But if you are not that person, every time there's a conflict, two persons are responsible. You might have contributed 5%. Don't trivialize your 5% whilst addressing the 90%. In fact, wisdom will teach you that when you bring up conversations, start with what you did wrong before going on to what the other person did wrong. Because when you start from what you did wrong in addressing the issue, you make the person understand that you see how they feel. All right? You understand what you made them go through. Then you can now start addressing yours. But it is a foolish position to be in where you just come, hey, you did this, you did it, and after you're done, pow, you've logged out. You can't sort out any issue that way. All right? Now, so I said here that in calm talking on resolving any issue, Complain, don't criticize. Please write that down. Very, very important. Complain, don't criticize. And I'll give you two examples. One is complaining, the other one is criticizing. Now, complaining is you letting the person know what they did wrong and how it made you feel. So, for instance, if let me use Pastor Taiwo and Pastor Gabriel. All right. So if Pastor Taiwo and Pastor Gabriel, I mean, they are married, lovely couple. And for instance, Pastor Gabriel comes back from work late, and all through that day did not call Pastor Taiwo. Now there are two options available for Pastor Taiwo. Pastor Taiwo can say, "You are such an insensitive man. You went out, you know that you left only me in the house. I went out from work, and whilst I was at work, I was giving you update of how my movement was. I was telling you where I was. I was telling you what I was doing. You didn't tell me anything. You didn't tell me you're going to come back late. You're such an insensitive man. You're just withdrawn to yourself. You don't think about me. You are so insensitive. You are selfish." That is criticizing. Complaining is you stepped out. You have a wife. You left me. You didn't let me know. You didn't make me feel safe. I felt very abandoned. All right. Complaining is more about letting the person know what their actions did to you, whilst criticizing is more about making sure that the person thinks less of themselves. Those two things are not the same. You can complain. Every good union, you should complain. If you find something in the union you're not comfortable with, complain, but don't criticize. Complaining is addressing the issue. Yeah, exactly. Complaint sounds very romantic. And listen, there's nobody you complain to that would, if you do it the way I just said it now, that is going. It's like the person is a mad person. If you tell the person, "See, you stepped out, you didn't call me, all day you abandoned me. You made me feel like you are not thinking about me." Not you don't think. You see, once you say you don't think about me, you only think about yourself. You have criticized. But you say, "You made me feel like you don't think about me, like I'm not a priority in your heart. That's why you went out all day and you were where you were." And listen, usually once you talk to somebody like that, it breaks the person down. That's complaining. But when you go critical, it's still the same issue. It's just how you approach it. When you go about criticizing, what you are doing is putting the person on the defensive. And listen, that's why nobody ever wins a court case. That's why you realize somebody went to court and the judge gave the person a judgment and they said the person don't win. In 20 years' time, you realize that the person has gone to appeal that case, because nobody ever wins an argument. Nobody. Once it becomes an argument, both parties are thinking about, okay, what he did to me, let me also tell him. How the last one he did, let me also let him understand that he's not the only one who is suffering. I'm also suffering in this relationship. That's what, once you take your spouse or your partner on the witness stand, you guys are no longer partners, you are opponents. And as opponents, you always live to fight. So complain, don't criticize. All right? Complain, don't criticize. If you're an avoider, learn to talk, learn to have discussions. When you sweep things under the carpet, it piles up in your heart, and you can't continue to live like that, because you are not even helping your spouse. All right? Have you ever thought about those people who used to come for reality, all these what's it called now? The Voice, Nigeria, and all of those singing platforms. You see all those people who come there and come and disgrace their family. The problem they have is I don't have people close to them that tell them the truth. I used to have someone like that, when I was in Owerri. I mean, I was in a choir. I mean, we're not very, very hot, but we're good. And in my choir back then, I knew that they don't to send me like that. All right. I was okay to an extent, but I wasn't like the top list in the choir. But when I left there and went somewhere else, they used to see me as, big guy. Oh, this guy can sing. But I was wise enough to remind myself that, oh boy, forget this thing. The standard is higher than this. All right. So sometimes when you don't tell your spouse the truth, the mistake they made with you and you pampered it, you didn't tell them, oftentimes they'll go and do it in public. And when they do it in public, the shame is going to come to you. Because like the Igbo adage has it, A madman is not ashamed. It's the family of the madman that shame comes to. All right. Now, quickly, I said types of conflict. Types of conflict. There is what I call healthy conflict and unhealthy conflict. Now, healthy conflict is what I talked about. Complain, don't criticize. In unhealthy conflict, all right, you have name calling. So in healthy conflict, you address the situation, not your partner. It's the situation you're. So I like to think of conflict, healthy conflict, as me and my spouse are both in the house. We have opinion A and opinion B outside our house. Take note. Gideon and his wife are in the house. Opinion A and opinion B are outside the house. Now, Gideon is saying, I want opinion A inside the house. And the wife is saying, I want opinion B inside the house. Remember, what they are trying to achieve is to get one of those opinions inside their house. Right? Now, so what the both of them are going to do is not fight themselves, is to mentally discuss why should opinion A. Now, sometimes, don't get me wrong, sometimes that discussion can get emotional. Sometimes it can get heated. Then wisdom will now teach that, okay, when it gets heated, let's leave this conversation and come back to it later. Listen, every union that works takes two persons working to make it work. So if you run away at the sight of work, you can't have a good marriage. Every time there's, and that's why I find out that 95% of the times people who divorce again. If the guy has divorced before, he will divorce again. Because usually when it gets to that point where conflict arises, he runs away. He will meet that same thing again in future with someone else. So in healthy conflict, we address issues, we don't criticize persons. All right? In healthy conflict, both parties know that they're on the same side. When you have discussion and one person, remind the person that we're on the same side here, we are not enemies. Now, in unhealthy conflict, you name call. Say you are a useless person. Is it not you? You can't even polish my shoe. Are you a man? A man that cannot polish shoe. That's name calling. That's not conflict. That's criticizing. All right. And you can't resolve an issue when you make it your point of duty to demean your partner. Why would you want to demean your partner? Why will I just think now all I want to do is to ensure that self-confidence has left my wife? No, now. All right. So in unhealthy conflict, you name call, you issue threats. Say, if you say this thing again, I will slap you. All right. That's unhealthy conflict. He said, if you say this thing again, I will not eat. Let me say this. See, nothing should ever happen. There's no amount of conflict you should have with your spouse, dear man, that should make you not to eat your wife's food. Except on issues of attempt against your life. All right. But say you are quarreling, nothing is me. I will eat. Me and my wife will have this understanding that she will cook as I will not eat. For what? Is my stomach that's going to suffer? I can't do that. And I will not go outside and go and buy food. It's my house and it's my food. I'm going to eat it. Emi atonje. Say, tell her, say, me and food, no the quarrel. Bring my food. Let me eat. You must eat. Don't have misunderstandings and say, I'm not going to eat in this house. For what? What are you leaving the food for? And unfortunately, you may not understand that not eating will make the issue worse. Because she will not be thinking, so after I went to prepare food, issue that was on 5% before, you have now pushed it up to 30%. Now, I said in unhealthy conflict, there's name calling. We have to close now. Name calling, threats. You issue threats. Number 3, there's emotional abuse. Then the worst part, the next worst one after emotional abuse is physical abuse, where people begin to slap or hit themselves in the head or whatever. Now, let me end with this by saying that the purpose of every conflict or misunderstanding is to get us to agree or reach a compromise on certain areas that affect us. So the purpose of conflict. So I've showed us before that you can't avoid conflict because you both have different influences growing up, different parents, different families, different church, different school, different friends. So what you both are trying to do, you both are both in the same house, I wish it was a physical class. There are certain illustrations I would have given. All right. So, but think with me as I paint the picture, as I close. You both are both in the same house. All right. So you want to buy water, for instance. So the opinion now is one person is saying, I like Aquafina water. The other person is saying, I want Eva water. But the both of you need to agree on one. Always understand that the both of you are both on the same side. Where the issue is the idea. So we must together work at, okay, what do we work with? Because if two shall become one, then there has to be a lot of chiseling to ensure that we arrive at that sense, that oneness that God wants us to arrive at. With this, I round off our course for today. I'm open to taking 2 questions if there's any. If there's none, we'll call it a night. Does anybody have any question? Just 2 questions. I have 1 hand up and 2 hands up. All right, please. No other questions so that we can close. All right, please. Just for now, no other questions. All right, let's take Preke TV. Rachel, okay. We'll take Rachel, but please let that be the end. Please, because of time. Yes, please, straight to the point.
Okay, good evening, sir. Thank you for the teaching. So I wanted to ask here, is it possible for somebody to be both an avoider? Because won't be the 3 of them. Is it possible?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So
why do you want the life?
Okay. All right. So it's like people who say, is somebody an extrovert or an introvert? All right. Somebody can be an extrovert in certain situations and be an introvert in certain situations. So there are times like that also. All right. But predominantly you most likely be one predominantly. All right. So somebody who does not like to have disagreement, confrontations, because for instance, you say because we're in public, does not mean that predominantly that's who the person is. So how you know you or the person is, how do they respond to conflict predominantly? But is it possible that at different situations a fighter might use a calm talk? But sometimes for fighters using calm talk, if they try, agree, they will go back to factory setting. So is it because they talk to you gently? Because I'm talking to you, you're not trying to listen. I know, I'm not okay in my head though. They've told you that I adopted calm talking for a bit, but I am predominantly something. And if you don't take this one that I'm giving you, I might go back to where I'm coming from. So yes, predominantly people usually take a particular form, but at different moments, for different reasons, sometimes for different persons. All right. There are persons who observe calm talking for people they have more respect for instance. So somebody has predominantly for people who check how they react with conflict that has, especially when they are comfortable around people. But if it's the one, like for instance, even if you're a fighter, you will not go and do like that for your boss. You will talk calmly with your boss. It does not mean that the person is a calm talker. So I don't know if that answers your question, or if you still need more clarity, I can still touch it a little bit.
No, it actually does, sir.
Okay.
Different situations calls for different lessons.
Yeah. But people are predominantly one, usually predominantly one. And the fastest way to observe that is how do they react when they are not trying to impress somebody. So usually it is at the work stage or the established establishment stage of the relationship.
Sir,
yeah.
Sir, see, can I paint a picture for you?
In 1 minute.
See, okay. Me, I'm a kind of person that I don't like conflict. If you do something to me, I will not talk about it. I will just stay away from you until we just drift apart. That is one. But if you happen to bring it up and it really hurts me, I will shout. I will express myself. But sometimes when the person doesn't mean anything to me, I'll just talk calmly and say, "Okay, let's just leave this and let's just go a different way. That's what matters." That's what I was trying to say. if three of them can
So
manifest that.
you use a condition. Say some when the person does not mean anything to you, you just say, okay, this relationship is good enough to just leave it and let it walk away. You the person goes. But if you feel like the relationship is worth fighting for, when you engage in those conversations, your emotions get the best of you. So that's what I was referring to. Sometimes with different persons, sometimes under different circumstance, but check the one that is predominantly. How do you react with your siblings? How do you react with your parents? With those people, you're not trying to impress them any longer. All right. Those people are now people that you you are know me how I am. This is how I am. All right. So I don't need to form with you guys again. How you react with people who you are not under pressure to impress is predominantly who you are. All right. Then also, oh yeah. So yeah, yeah. That's pretty much it. Gideon, please, straight to the point, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. My question is
Thank you.
about complaining and criticizing. So, how do one handle recurring issues, especially things that has to do with personality? So, let's say I'm in a relationship with someone now who
Gideon, I can't
might be
hear you again.
legitimately
Is it
used.
just me?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, but at some point I stopped hearing you.
Okay, so let me repeat the question. So I was saying that my question has to do with complaints and
Personality.
criticizing. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So personality issues. So how do you handle recurring issues where they already did it in the past and you complained about it? You complained in the
Mm,
right way about
mm,
it. And at some point when you started complaining about it again, they were getting irritated that the complaints is becoming too much. And I know
mm,
you mentioned that there are certain traits that will not change suddenly, and there are some
mm.
things that won't even change at all. So, what's the place of empathy and understanding, and how do you handle such kind of situation?
Okay. Now, so like you rightly said, especially when I was explaining the establishment phase of a relationship, I said that the establishment phase of a relationship, you guys have had disagreements on some issues, you have sorted it out, and on some you have learned to compromise. Now, you won't always get, but let me say this: if the core of who you are is how do I explain this now? So for instance, somebody you're going to get married to is telling you, you too love Jesus, so you too love Jesus, so what is it? You too love Jesus, so that's the core of your person. All right, the core of your person. If the person is complaining every time like an unbroken CD, every single time, that's a red flag. I'm telling you, especially when, because what happens sometimes with people when they complain about something for so long, especially when they begin to complain, and you begin to sense disgust in their tone, like the person is now irritated. Okay, there are courses we're going to take in the future that you see the build up. Okay, so when, especially when that complaint is now no longer a complaint, is now sounding like the person is like disgust is now in the person's voice, like, why are you like this? um is a huge red flag that should be avoided. Okay, so there are things that don't sound like issues when you are dating, because you people only see yourself once in a while. But once you people start living together, because that's the purpose of every relationship, by the time you people start living together and you have to interact with that thing every single minute, then you realize that what you felt, because see, all you need to get a house soaked is to one drop of water. Just let it be dropping them. Once it is consistent over a long period of time, the place is going to be soaked. So um when it is a personality issue, now the first question you ask yourself is, can you change? All right. So I remember when myself and my wife were dating, and I used to have terrible issues with calling her. All right. Now I knew that what I was doing was wrong, and I wanted to change. And I knew I was going to put effort to change. I prayed to change because books alone were not helping me. I prayed. Okay. I remember there was a conversation she had with me about the time when I was rounding off service. All right, and it made me. I was outside. Those who know NCF Family House where I stayed, I was outside under the mango tree, dark night. Nobody was seeing me. I was telling God, I said, God, I don't want to be like this. Help me to change. Help me to change. Now, the reason why I could pray like that, I was praying, I was crying about it, right? Because I wasn't comfortable with situations that had forged me into a particular version of person that I didn't like. So I was comfortable with it when I was alone, but now I was bringing a woman into my life and then to make adjustments. Now, the reason why I was complaining and crying at that point was because, Princess, was because I knew that what I had become was not good for a relationship and definitely was not good for marriage. Okay, so I knew it was wrong. So I needed to change. And I was committed to changing. So the first question you're going to ask yourself, and I told that then, I said, I'm going to promise you that I'm going to change. It may not be instant, but I'll get better. So the first thing is there anything wrong with what the person is complaining about? That's one. Number two, are you willing to change that thing, that side of you? Okay? Are you willing? So first question is, this thing this person is complaining about, is it a bad thing, or is it just my person? Is not bad. Number two is, are you willing to change? So if you are an energetic person, are you willing to drop your energy because of this person? Is that asking too much of you? So if it is not a bad thing, and you feel like, Omo, I don't want to lose myself, this is losing myself, it will be good to have a candid discussion with the person and tell the person, well, I see that you're not comfortable with my kind of person, and this is who God made me, and this is. But if you feel like it is something you want to change, you want to give, then by all means, go for it. So it is up to you to analyze the situation. Is this a bad thing this person is complaining about? Or is it just because I'm different from him or from her? That's why the person is reacting like this. Once you sorted out that question, you want to now ask yourself the second question: am I willing to change? Okay, because trust me, for every union, what you think you can take is what you will take. If you think you can't take it, don't now get in there and say, I hope the person will change. Now, sometimes there's certain things you have those kind of expectations, but when it comes to your personality and you know it's not wrong, and the person is not comfortable with it, and the person is already complaining with disgust in their voice, irritation, whenever you do it, you feel like now you can't express yourself around the person because you feel like the person is going to be irritated. That you want to backtrack a little and have a proper conversation with the person, because what if it's not something you're willing to change and the person can't change? You guys are going to have terrible issues in the future. So those are the things I would recommend that you do. Rachel, sorry, Gideon, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, that's fine, sir. Thank you very much. It's clear.
Thank you. All right. Rachel,
Good evening, sir. Good
good
evening,
evening.
everyone. Yeah, thanks for this opportunity. So my question is based on the example you cited on um a pastor not calling the wife and the wife complaining. So my question is, in a situation where you are a calm talker, you complain, not criticizing, but your partner sees it as an attack, despite you calmly talking, but showing your concern. But instead of the person admitting and saying sorry, they rather drag or try to explain the issue
Mm,
instead of them to just apologize. Like the example you cited, just that's just the perfect picture of the question I want to ask. That instead of the man to call the his wife
mm,
or his partner for a very long time, and the partner is complaining that you did not call, and instead of the person saying, okay, sorry, this is what happened, they try explaining, and that was not what you needed at that time.
mm.
So I don't know what you can advise on that, sir. That's my question.
All right. Thank you. Very good question. So, for every union, there's going to be certain discussions you people are going to have that you would arrive at a point of impasse, a point where you are not agreeing, because trust me, it's not every conversation in a marriage that is very straightforward. Okay, so there might be certain situations people get to where you're having, and the person is saying, I don't see anything wrong with what I did. You are saying what you did is wrong. You should have somebody in your life that you both have agreed. Listen, when it is not you both taking your issue, you both agreeing to take your issue to somebody else, it is gossip, and you should never gossip your spouse. Hmm? You shouldn't, except on the table of the person that myself and my wife have said, if we have issues, this is the person we're going to meet and have discussions. I don't have discussions. There are people who live in my house. Okay, I don't have anybody that I go to and say, can you imagine? Can you imagine my wife? What a rubbish! I Not my family member, nobody, and I won't do it. All right. So you people should have, both of you should have somebody, or whoever you're asking the question for. They should have, okay, when we have issues, so person or so person or so person, you are feel free to call the person and report the issue. I can't remember the pastor. Anybody who remembers, please remind me. Who was sharing, and said that if something happened, he went for a program, he wasn't making time for his wife. He came back from program, and next minute he packed his bag, he was going for another one, and the wife was complaining bitterly, say, you don't have time for me, you don't have that, and all of that. And he said the wife was talking and he didn't listen. He was thinking, this woman is trying to stop me from doing kingdom work. And as he stepped out, before he got to his gate, his pastor called him. He said immediately he saw his pastor's call. His pastor, he is a general overseer. I can't remember the person now. He's a general overseer, but he has someone he submits to. So immediately he saw the pastor's call, he just told himself that he knows he's not going for this program again. And the truth is, what once the woman, okay, was it? No, it wasn't him. It wasn't. It's someone else, a younger person. All right. So he said immediately he saw the call, he knew he wasn't going again. The pastor told him, oh yeah, turn back. Pastor Bolaji, yes, Pastor Bolaji, because it was a recent story. It was, yeah, Pastor Bolaji. So immediately he saw the pastor's call, he just knew he's not going for any meeting again. The pastor told him, oh yeah, turn back, go back to your wife. And that was the end. They now went back and had to have a proper conversation. So anybody who is getting into a marriage for safety purposes, listen, it does not mean that you people can't handle your issues. It does not mean that you people are not wise. It does not mean that can't we handle things by ourselves, between ourselves. There are going to be times where you people need a sincere, unbiased third party. You both should be able to say, okay, and listen, you both should be able to say, even without, feel free to call so and so person anytime I get it wrong and I'm not listening to you. This other person also say, feel free to call this other person. So it has to be something you both agree on. So if you're going to have cases like that, it's always safe that before you get to that point, the both of you, when both of you's head are still calm, that you people agree and say, okay, so and so person we can always talk to, we can always call. You can always call this person and complain about what I did wrong, and I won't see it as you gossiping me behind my back. So you guys should always have that. Is very, very necessary for any relationship, because you're going to have those cases in doses where this person will say, I don't see anything wrong with what you are doing. This other person says, I don't see anything wrong. And you people need to reach an agreement. There has to be somebody you people can call and say, and the person will have unbiased conversation. Okay, you were wrong here, you were right here, and you guys can now forge ahead. I don't know if that answers your question, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Father, we thank
Yes,
you,
sir.
we give you
Thanks.
praise, we give you glory. Thank you for the privilege to learn this night. Thank you for your revelation knowledge. Thank you for the light that you've communicated to our spirits. We decree in the name of Jesus that our marriages will not fail. Our marriages will be healthy and is successful in the name of Jesus. The understanding and the wisdom that is required for us to build homes that will be model homes in the kingdom and in the world generally. We thank you for receive it in fullness. Everything we're learning here, thank you for the wisdom to adapt them into our lives and what we do. We give you praise and we give you glory in Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.